let me start out with all the praise that I have for this guy because he is one of the most accomplished human beings on the planet. He's done the impossible at least twice with both Tesla EV adoption being something that was considered impossible by the rest of the car industry. He sort of like single-handedly helped bring that to fruition. And reusable rockets, which everyone thought was impossible as well. And SpaceX's success with the Falcon 9 has been incredible. And of course, what he's done is just unbelievable. And there's so much more details that we can get into about his accomplishments. So most accomplished human on the planet. The reason I want to say that up front is because most of the critics of Elon just hate his guts and they think he's done nothing, or they just think he's a fraud, or, like, I feel like their criticism is just invalid. Like, you got to be first a fan before you can criticize the guy. Right. And I'm a fan. Okay. So as a fan, this pay package, as well as the last one, which was outrageous at like $58 billion, and this one, the last one was outrageous. The court found it to be outrageous, struck it down twice, despite two shareholder positive votes that this is perfectly fine by shareholders, right? Because shareholders are such huge fans of Elon's that they'll approve anything. So $58 billion pay packages have gotten struck down a couple times, largely because it was like something like 1,000 times higher than any previous pay packages in history for CEOs. Um, and then it's like hold my beer time, because the new pay package is $1 trillion. It's over $1 trillion if he hits these milestones. That the milestones are pretty aggressive. Don't get me wrong, and there's a good chance they won't be achieved. But we're talking about milestones that make Tesla worth roughly 7 or 8 times higher than it is today. And for that, he wants to receive 12% of the company, which, if those milestones are achieved, would mean he would receive over $1 trillion of value of the market cap of the company as part of his compensation, despite the fact that he already owns 13% of the company, by the way. So his own shares, his founder shares that he's been selling nonstop. He sold over 40 or $50 billion worth to buy Twitter and a few years back. And the reason his founder shares are down to only 13% of the company, which is incredibly big, by the way, still,
Yep.
it's in the over 150 billion or whatever that he currently owns. Um, those founder shares would be worth over 1 point something trillion if these milestones are hit anyway. But on top of those, that gain, which would make him a trillionaire, he wants an additional $1 trillion of stock. So yeah, like, when we're freaking measuring one person's compensation package by the same measures of like the U.S. GDP or the annual budget of the Department of Defense, it is pretty insane. Yeah,
Do
and
you
it just
that
blows me away.
think Tesla will be able to hit those metrics?
I definitely think it's possible, right? Like, and also, like, a lot of the metrics are uh, along the way. He gets certain huge
Right.
comp packages along the way, 1% at a time, 12% in total. So maybe he hits half of them, or he only gets 6%, $500 billion. It's still too much, and of course, it's possible he's going to hit all of them. It's also possible that Tesla gets valued at much higher than 8.5 trillion, and the 12% could also be worth significantly more. He's talked about how Tesla might be a $20 trillion company someday. So that 12% would actually be worth $2.4 trillion of compensation. So, but let's go on the sort of like minimum. And I put together a slide deck over here. I don't know if
Oh.
you can see my screen yet, but I thought it might be fun to look at what $1 trillion can buy. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, I could see it. I love this already.
So, yeah. So by the way, $1 trillion pay package is thousands of times higher than any other CEO in history has ever been compensated. It's thousands of times, right? So no one has been had $1 billion comp package as part of their sort of standard comp package. They may have gotten stock that later gets worth $1 billion or whatever, but not like, no, if you hit these things, we'll give you $1 billion. But $1 trillion buys you 5 B-2 stealth bombers at a cost of just 10 billion, 200 F-35 Raptors at a cost of 20 billion, 10 nuclear submarines at a cost of 30 billion. Right? Like you're talking add three more aircraft carriers at a cost of 40 billion, and collectively we're only $100 billion in. So we need to go a little bit faster. Let's take the pay packages of all 125,000 Tesla employees for the next 10 years. Every single other person, not including Elon, that works at Tesla, will collectively get paid $200 billion over the next 10 years. $200 billion for every other person besides Elon. So let's add that to it. So we're now at $300 billion of spend. Let's add the entire budget of the country of France at $500 billion. And we still have, over $300 billion left over at 1.1 trillion, where it's greater than the market caps of Robinhood, PayPal, Rocket Lab, Chipotle, and GM combined. So he could buy all of those companies at today's market caps. Yeah, that's $1 trillion for you. And that is what he is asking for uh in compensation. That is just outrageous. That is just outrageous. I don't care how lofty the goals are and how impossible they might seem. It's only an 8-time increase. Imagine, by the way, like if Vlad was asking for a 12% of Robinhood for the 10x increase that he's done, more than 10x increase he's done in the market cap of Robinhood, right? Which would have seemed impossible just a couple of years ago, but yet here we are, is over 10 times. And most of these founders are not only not asking for ridiculous compensation, they have very little to no compensation, and their share just diminishes as a percentage of the company as they sell their shares. And the reason they're not asking for these ridiculous compensations, such as Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, is because they already have more money than they can possibly spend. So mind blowing request. Now, Elon always talks about why his request is not about money and it's not for him to be able to get another $1 trillion worth of wealth, but it's so that he can have control over Tesla. 25% control is what he wants, um, so that someone doesn't come in and abuse all these technologies that he helps build at the company by pushing him out. And and the answer to that is that, hey, that's ridiculous request. If the entirety of the shareholders want to get you out for some reason, which they never have historically, they should be able to do that. But B, there's other ways to accomplish that is not giving $1 trillion pay package. You could even accomplish it by creating a new entity that does a reverse merger into Tesla, and the new
Mm,
entity has shares that are largely controlled by Elon. You could have 10x voting power. You can't apparently do that for an existing entity. But if you
that was gonna
created
be
a
my
new
question.
entity, but if you created a new entity and that entity sort of absorbed or bought in a reverse merger Tesla, that's certainly a possibility. And the only thing that would require is board and shareholder approval, which is what this pay package requires as well. $1 trillion is just out of the question. That should not even be a thing. If you want to know why society is moving towards like socialism and like why we have these other problems where like the wealth gap is part of the thing that people point to. Well, this just exudes greed and wrongful amount of pay compensation for any one individual. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm off my rant there.
Well, buy, hold, rant, right?
Yeah.
So if it's too much money where like there's really nothing you could even do with it
Right.
realistically,
I mean,
and it there's other ways to get these voting shares if that's really what he wants. But like if he really wanted just that, that's probably what you said. Doing the reverse merger is probably the way to go.
right.
What do you think his true
Motive
intention
is.
is? Yeah, or motive.
I mean, like, I have no idea. It's hard to speculate. I mean, I have watched so many interviews of Elon, and I feel like I have a sense of like the person he is, but like it just seems like out of character to be asking for such a ridiculous pay package. It's out of character for any founder in history, like of a highly successful company. Um, and the defenders are like, yeah, but he's adding 7.5 trillion. He's doing market cap to Tesla's valuation. He's doing these impossible tasks that or no one else has done before. So if he can add 7.5 trillion uh, of market cap, why doesn't he get 1 trillion of it? What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that the precedent it's setting in the world is like the big deal, right? Like $1 trillion is not chump change. We're not talking about like getting him a few $100 million of compensation to, for the appropriate levels of effort. There's 125,000 people behind Tesla who collectively get $200 billion over the next 10 years of compensation. And then this one person should get 5 times more than all other people working on Tesla, working their asses off in 90, 100-hour weeks to try to meet Elon's expectations. Collectively, all 125,000 people should get 1/5 the pay of Elon. It's
And
just,
the way
exudes.
that
Yeah.
the way the
Anyway,
pay
go ahead.
package works, I'm assuming it creates new shares and it dilutes everyone else.
That's right. It does. And people talk about, yeah, but these shares, he can't sell them for like 10 years. Well, okay. But he can sell his existing shares, which is 13% of the company. So if he chose to sell 13%, the other 13%, which is also going to be worth over $1 trillion, by the way, if the market cap of 8.5 trillion is hit, um, then, he can still sell $1 trillion worth of the company and still own $1 trillion, right? So, yeah, it's dilutive for sure. It's just all around bad. I don't see any good that this compensation package does, except for supposedly keep Elon at Tesla. But um, if I
The
was
other
on the
thing,
board, I would
the other
I
thing
would
is,
be having a discussion
yeah,
with him.
I wouldn't want Elon to have majority voting. Like I would want any founder, like once they hit a certain size of company, like they should be able to be voted out by the board. Not because
Right,
anyone should be voted out, but like it just like you want that person to be doing their best work. And there should be,
right,
it just checks and
right.
balances.
Right, right. And, like people point to, for example, Steve Jobs getting ousted by the board and the CEO that he had hired as the reason why this is a legitimate concern. Well, we're in a different world than 1984 when Apple Steve Jobs was fired by the board. Uh, a Steve owned a very small chunk of Apple at the time. B, he was not nearly as accomplished as and Elon is today, right? Like, and C, because of that mistake, by the way, the industry has learned its lesson and has like basically avoided doing that over the course of the next few decades, especially since Steve came back and showed the world that like you shouldn't have fucking let me go, right?
And
And
there's an argument to be made that maybe because they let him go, that he was
is the
able to
reason.
generate all these great product ideas and like take the risks he did and like kind of, put a fire
That's
under
right.
him.
100%. And when he did all of that, he only owned one share of Apple. When he came back in 1997, they bought Next and gave him
Hmm.
something like $400 million worth of Apple shares, and he ended up selling all of it but one share of Apple and became the ICEO. And as ICEO, he had so much clout that he fired the entire board, replaced them with new members with one share, one voting share, right? Like one share. I'm not talking about $1 billion worth of shares. One share of Apple at the time, I think was like worth $15 or something. Um, split adjusted is probably worth under a dollar, right? With one share, and he took a $1 a year annual salary, by the way. And for the next 4 years, that's all he worked with: one share and $1 a year in salary. In fact, in the next 4 years, he had accomplished so much that he was kind of pissed that the board of directors didn't come and offer him a bigger compensation package. And then he went to the board and freaking demanded like 10 million shares. Um, And that comp package, where it took him from owning just one share to 10 million shares, which was at the time worth, I don't know, $100 million, what was considered to be like outrageous request,
Right.
and uh, and like that was Steve, right? Like, and we're talking about somebody who already owns $150 billion worth of shares of Tesla, has tons of incentive to make Tesla successful. He already has the support of the entire board. The board is practically his family. Like, it's his brother is on the board. There's no one on the board who goes against it. The board is giving him $1 trillion pay package, asking him to stay. So no one's going against this guy, right? And if they do, everyone should be alarmed, right? And there's probably good reason for it. His last pay package got approved by shareholders at 75%. So no one is going against Elon, and he wants protection over something that's imaginary. And in order to get that protection, he wants $1 trillion worth of pay package, right? That's that's just
Right.
nuts,
He wants to hurt all of his shareholders,
right?
right? Like to get that, even though there are ways around, negatively affecting anyone. And
Yeah.
it's really not even in the shareholders' best interest for him to do this.